Welcome to the Freelance Drive. Here we talk with skilled freelancers about their professional journey. Stay tuned for real-life experiences to learn and actionable steps to take to improve your freelancing career. My name is Yuri. I'm a community builder at Code Control and 9am.works, and my guest is Anna Burgess Yang, a freelance content marketer, journalist, and writer with expert-level experience in banking and technology, who also creates resources for other solopreneurs and provides one-on-one consulting for people looking to improve their business operations. And today, we'll talk about processes and procedures, the back-end type of stuff that it takes to run a successful freelance business. So, welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much for having me.
Finally, it took a little bit of time to schedule this conversation, but I'm happy we're having it right now. So let's start with the beginning. So for you, what's the front end and what is the back end of a freelance business?
The front end business is anything that other people can see. So that might be your client work. It might be even your social media content, maybe even, blog or newsletter thing, like stuff that is kind of external. And the operation stuff happens behind the scenes. So it's everything that you're doing to keep those things organized, whether it's, project managing your clients, whether it's planning your social media or planning any other content, as well as things like, preparing your invoices or, setting reminders for yourself to do other things within your business. Those are all back-end things like that other people don't necessarily know about. And I think that's why a lot of freelancers don't talk about it. Right? Because we don't see those things and everybody is using their own systems behind the scenes.
Yeah, people think that, oh, I'll be freelancer, I'll be working less, getting more, and just have fun at the beach. But in the reality, who knows? So what, for you personally, what is more time consuming, back end or the front end? Like what is the proportion here?
For me, it's probably about 50-50. Just because, my client work does take time to produce and all this back end stuff. I'm doing a lot to maintain my business, but it's also a little hard for me to judge because I have a ton of automation and systems and things that some of it's just kind of running in the background and I don't have to think about it until I need to look at it.
Yeah. So what systems do you have, like for what in general?
So to run my business, I use Airtable as kind of what I would call a source of truth. So kind of a centralized system for a lot of things related to, keeping track of clients and deliverables and invoices and things like that. I use Trello for project management because there's a lot more flexibility and kind of connecting things together, especially if it's a multi-layered project. I'm using Zapier to connect the two. So I don't have to duplicate any effort between the systems. I can use them however I'd like, use one thing that it's good at, use another thing that it's good at. I use Buffer for social media. And then there's tons of other little ancillary tools that are kind of running around. Sometimes they're doing a specific thing, like Calendly, for example. That's doing one piece of my business and it's helping me manage my calendar. But Airtable, Trello, and Buffer are probably the three that I rely on the most.
Now it sounds like you are a Santa who are doing the most job and you have a lot of elves running here and there and helping you to deal with all this stuff. And, recently you've shared that you post 2 or 3 times per day on LinkedIn, then you publish content, do it on social media, send out a newsletter, do a Substack, have a blog, and you even have some time to do client work, and it's amazing, but even sleep. So I'm curious, what systems you do that you still have life? Like, what exactly helps you to save your time? How do you do this content market? Let's call it content marketing.
Yeah. So a lot of it is very system dependent. For example, I publish multiple times a day on LinkedIn, same with Threads, Instagram, not so much, but none of that content is like new. It's kind of coming from other places. So for example, I publish a blog post in the background, Zapier picks up the blog post, runs it through ChatGPT, and create some potential social posts, which I then edit before I publish. But I'm not staring at a blank page, I'm staring at an idea. And so I have a ton of things like that running around in the background so that when I'm sitting down to work, I open up Trello for project management. I'm like, okay, this is what happens next. That could be writing a blog post, I'm collecting ideas and things like that. That could be client work, all these things. So I'm doing what I can with systems and tools to reduce the brain load and needing to think about what's happening or what do I need to work on.
Why I'm asking about the content, because as what I've heard, it's one of the hardest part for freelancers to work and on and to let other people know that they exist. So
Yeah.
am I hearing it correctly that your starting point is a blog post?
Mm, Sometimes, most of the time, half the time. And that was not a good answer. No, maybe about half the time. The other half of the time, my LinkedIn content is coming from comments that I leave on other people's LinkedIn posts.
Hmm.
So I wake up, I engage with other people on LinkedIn. That improves my own visibility. So people do see me. But then I'm harvesting those things, those little comments. And if they're good or I think I can expand on them, I turn them into my own LinkedIn posts. So almost nothing I publish on LinkedIn is brand new. It's either coming from my blog, it's coming from my newsletter, or it's coming from a comment that I left somewhere else, which makes it a ton easier and makes it sustainable to like have this volume of content. Because, like you said, promoting yourself is a pretty critical part of freelancing. It's that sales aspect, it's that marketing aspect. So I realized very early that I needed to be visible in order for clients to find me.
And how do you choose whose posts to comment?
I have a couple of saved lists of people that also publish regularly and are either in similar industries or adjacent to me. I do just go through my feed because I am connected to a lot of industry people, and so I'll just kind of scroll through my feed. I very recently got a walking pad in my office, and so now my morning routine is hang out on the walking pad for 30 minutes with like a standing desk and do my LinkedIn engagement at that time, and that is a great pro tip I highly recommend.
I can imagine that, walking and typing, like
It's
it's
okay. It's okay for I don't think I could do client work. Like I can't that's very focused. But for just talking on LinkedIn, and just replying back to other people, that is easy enough to do if you're not like a running pace, if you're just kind of strolling.
so when you have a blog post, you put it to ChatGPT and it helps you to come out with a small social media post. So what is how the process looks like for when you take comments?
That's a little different. LinkedIn used to have an export feature, and you could export your own content, and it would be a CSV file, which I would just go through. They stopped including comments in the export. I
Hmm.
don't know if they'll ever come back. So I use an app called Readwise, and it allows you to highlight text on any website. So it's great also for reading articles or just anything that you see. You're like, oh, I want to grab that idea. So all I do is just I'll open my own LinkedIn feed, look at my comments, highlight my comments, and then Readwise will sync to a ton of different apps. You could sync it to Notion, you could sync
Hmm.
it to Roam Research, or I use an app called Reflect. So they all just kind of float into that app, and then I work from that app and turn them into future posts. I wish it were a little bit more project managed, but I have to work with what's available, and that's the best way I've found to just kind of it's like a brain dump of all of my comments.
And how exactly does the process of turning them into posts look like?
Yep. So then on like I usually do my social media on the weekend. I do advocate for work-life balance, but for me, like that's just the best uninterrupted time is like a little chunk of time on the weekend. So I'll just sit down, I'll open up. First, I'll open up LinkedIn, I'll do the highlighting. And then once I'm done, I'll go into Reflect. And usually there's prior week's comments. And so I'll start there and just glance through them and be like, yeah, I could expand on that, or no, that didn't end up being as good as I thought, and then I'll delete it. Um, so then I'll grab the idea out of Reflect and go into Buffer, which is where I schedule my social media content and type out the full post.
How do you ensure that your content is in line with what your clients are looking for? Like, do you get clients from the content you post?
I do, but not from the content I post. Like
Hmm.
they find me because I'm visible on LinkedIn. And my LinkedIn headline, right underneath, right next to and underneath my name says freelance fintech writer, financial technology and product writer. And so there aren't a ton of fintech writers in the world. And I'm commenting on other marketers. And so in that industry, so they're seeing me, and then they can kind of check out my profile from there. But most of the content I publish on LinkedIn is aimed at fellow freelancers, fellow solopreneurs. Sometimes a little bit like my thoughts on content marketing, but I am very specific. I don't do content strategy. I'm basically just the execution person. Like I just do the well-written piece of content. So, I don't like to sway into areas that I'm not as familiar with, which are strategy or SEO or things like that. So mostly I'm just talking at my peers and not necessarily people who are going to hire me
Why?
because it's worked. um, I pivoted careers a few years ago. I came from a technology background. I worked at a financial technology company for many years. I was the product manager and I was an executive. And when I decided to change careers and go into content marketing, I was very much a newbie.
Hmm.
And so to some extent, I don't have some of like the strategy experience that other people do. I just write very well. And I write in a very niche industry, which is financial technology. Not a lot of freelancers write about that. And if they do, they don't write very well. But I write from experience. And so I'm not out there to talk about um, financial technology writing necessarily, because my portfolio speaks for itself in that regard. Any potential client could look at my portfolio and know that I know my topics. So instead, I've just taken an approach that I'm going to be visible. So if somebody needs a financial technology writer, they'll find me because I'm there. That will be enough for them to go over to my LinkedIn profile, my portfolio, and hire me. And that's worked.
Yeah, why I'm asking, because what I hear from copywriters who works on LinkedIn as ghostwriters, folks, that they usually talk about that you have to focus on your audience. And what I hear from you that you are mostly focused on audience of peers, so not really clients. So I'm curious, is it the main way how clients find you, or what is your process of finding clients look like?
At this point, all of my work is inbound. So they're finding me. They either
Mhm.
come through LinkedIn. I do get inbound inquiries on my website. And so, for people Google like financial technology writer, I do come up. So, but it's all inbound work and referrals. And so, to that extent, I feel like it's more just important to stay visible, to show who I am, what I'm like to work with. I do talk about what it's like to be a freelancer. And so a potential client could see me talking about systems and processes and meeting deadlines. And that all shows that I'm going to be a reliable, organized freelancer who treats my business like a business, versus a freelancer who may not turn in work on time or may ghost them.
So am I hearing it correctly is that your system for finding clients is mostly content creation system?
Yes.
Cool. Sounds great. Yeah, for me, because I'm really discovering this way of how to really create exciting content, but not in a way of just creating it, but really giving a lot of value to people and to share on as much as possible experience and to start in some conversations that leads to learning, because I'm personally love learning from comments and because sometimes it's just amazing. But you are not only active on social media, so you also have a blog. And How do you optimize? Do you optimize your blog for SEO reasons?
No, not right now. I am looking to add tools and or people to help me with that. I do have basic SEO knowledge. There's more that I could do, and I've been writing for a long time, far before I knew what I was doing with SEO. So there's a lot that could go backwards. But the way I get more juice out of my blog is I cross post to Medium,
Mhm.
and I have which Medium allows, and I can add the canonical URL. And I have several thousand followers on Medium, plus I'm in several publications. So I can submit to a publication, and then they will push it out to their audience. The call to action at the bottom of every post is one of several free resources I have on Gumroad. So
Mm.
then a freelancer might read it and think, oh, I would love that free download that you have. They'll download it. Now I've got their email address. Whereas Medium alone is not going to give me that. The blog alone isn't going to give me that. But I'm basically using it as a vehicle that, hey, I'm going to put it on my own blog because there is some SEO benefit that I'm already getting. It just could be better. Then cross post it to Medium, put it in a publication. It'll go out to my followers. It'll go out to that publication's followers. And now I'm going to get some additional people in my orbit as a result of that.
Are freelancers that you connect with referred to your clients?
Um, Some freelancers have referred me to clients, yes. Like I know a couple freelancers who maybe they don't do writing themselves, they only do strategy,
Mhm.
or they do it to completely different industry. Like I have a freelance friend who is an e-commerce writer. And if she happens to hear about somebody who needs a financial writer, she'll refer them to me and vice versa. So I do stay connected to the freelance community, and I'll do the same. I'll refer people as well. I'll say that's not my area of expertise, but I know so and so who can do that thing that you need.
How much time do you think your system saves you a day?
A lot. So Zapier, for example, which is probably my best estimation, I have 200 individual automations running that saves me. Um, I just hit the maximum for the month, 1,500 tasks per month. So assume, 30 seconds a task, a minute a task, who knows? Could be 10
Yeah.
seconds a task, but it's saving me probably a couple hours a week, definitely 10 plus hours per month.
Yeah. Sounds like an extra weekend.
It's an extra person, right? Like it's an extra, yeah, it's a huge amount of time. And so I will add automation if I do basically if it's anything other than something I think I'm only going to do once. But if it's at least two plus times, I will figure out some way to at least automate a part of it because I'm only one person and my time is really valuable. And so anything that I can figure out how to automate, I will do that.
And for me personally, it's always easy to fill all the free time with just more work. So I'm curious, how do you put these boundaries around your time so as not to overwork while still delivering great value to your clients and still being productive?
Well, I have three kids. So
Okay, okay, so I get it.
they are my boundary, right? Um, my my youngest, my daughter gets off the bus at 4 o'clock every day. So I walk and pick her up from the bus stop. So that's kind of like a stopping point, or at least a stopping point that I strive for. Um, there are some things I can't, if a kid gets sick or something, that's what happens. And my kids are involved in activities. So I'm, part-time chauffeur on top of everything else. And, um, and on weekends, there is some work that I do on weekends, and I choose to do that because I like to contain my work day to a specific time. But I also like my weekends are my time with my kids. And so if I overwork, I'm taking time away from spending time with them. Um, so that's my boundary. But also things like writing in my blog or writing in my Substack, those are things I enjoy. I consider that, I often refer to that as personal writing. I mean, there is like a business benefit to me, But that's like, I'm choosing the topics, I'm choosing the content, I'm choosing what I want to write about, and I'm promoting it. So I don't necessarily think of that as work, even though I do plan it and kind of treat it as work. So there's a very blurred line there. But that's my downtime and that's my enjoyment.
But that's exactly the hardest part, because it's blurred and it's really hard to find like, oh, am I doing it for because I enjoy it, or am I doing it for work, or like. But yeah, I feel like three kids are great boundaries. And I'm curious. So you have your system for content marketing. You also told about some background processes that you run for your business. Like I feel like it's taxation or something like that. So what other processes do you have?
I mean, I've started relying on AI a lot more, never as a finished product ever. But the example I gave of running my blog through ChatGPT to um, draft some social posts, which I then edit, I'm doing a lot of that. So, for example, I'll run a transcript from this podcast when it publishes. I'll run the transcript through ChatGPT and say, hey, what are some key takeaways from my half of the conversation? And those become social posts in the future, just on, not related to the podcast at all, but just my own ideas. Or here's a blog post. What's a potential video script for like a minute long video that I could talk about the topic? So all of those things are kind of saving me time and keeping my systems running. But I also have automation related to client work. Every time I bring on a new client, I have an automation that adds a new folder with 5 subfolders to my Google Drive so that every client has the exact same setup. Sure, I could set those folders up manually, but that's a couple minutes per client and potential for error. So that's another example of just something that's just running in the background, are different things related to working with clients as well.
How do you decide what task to automate?
If I have to do it more than once, if
Got
I have to
it.
do it more than once, I will automate it. It's worth it to set up. At this point, I'm pretty seasoned with using Zapier and automation, and so it does not take me very long most of the time to figure something out. So if I see that I have to do it more than once, I will figure out a way to automate it.
Before we went to the recording of this conversation, you told me that you are currently curious in AI tools. So name top three AI tools that you already using or plan to use in the near future.
So I use Midjourney for image creation, and I really admire designers and people who do that. But have not been in a position where I've been able to pay a designer to do things like art for my blog posts. And what I was doing before was stock images, on Unsplash that everybody uses. So I've been using Midjourney for a long time to generate more unique, being in quotes, unique-ish images for my blog. Um, I use Fireflies as an AI note taker, so it joins meetings, gets me key takeaways. It works with Zapier, so it'll copy the transcript over to my Google Drive and things like that. So it just kind of keeps me organized. Um, and then I use a little AI tool on my phone, an app, a voice tool called Cleft, where I can dictate to myself something like, hey, this is what I'm going to do today. And I'll just word vomit for a couple of minutes. And then somehow it magically like organizes into a list, which I then can copy over to another tool or so those are probably my favorites and the ones that I use almost every day.
And I have so many questions still about how to build system and about all the tools and all the automation. And I really wish to have the sky is the limit, but time is the limit. So the
Sure.
final question, what is your favorite food?
Oh man, probably any kind of pasta. I love pasta. Um, like like stuffed pasta, like ravioli, or just like something with an interesting sauce. Like I'm a vegetarian, and so I kind of grew up on pasta and cheese. So
Got it. And what is the best way to connect with you?
So you can go to my website, start.annabyangang.com. And I've got a ton of like everything, like my blog, Medium, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Anna Burgess Yang, and that name is unique and you will be able to find me easily.
Got it. Got it. Anna, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I think it's been such a pleasure to hear and learn from you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, hit the like button on 5 stars and share it with your friend. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.